Okay, we 1 minute left. And then the first one, I want to invite the most venerable Plate Putivitet to leading for the pay respect to the Triple Gem. Okay ครับหลวงพ่อครับนิมนต์หลวงพ่อครับ
อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธภะคะวาพุทธังภะคะวันตังอะภิวาเทสวากขาโตภะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนัมมัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามานะมะยังพุทธัสสะภะคะวะโตบุพพาคะนามะกาลังกะโตมะเสนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนิมนต์ท่านเจ้าคุณนิดดำเนินการเลยนะได้ยินเสียงผมไหม
ครับผมได้ยินครับหลวงพ่อ
ดำเนินนิมนต์ดำเนินการไปตามโปรแกรมเปิดกันนะ
โอเคครับผมครับผม
ครับเจ้าคุณประเสริฐเจ้าคุณถนัดเข้ามาหรือเปล่า
หลวงพ่อเจ้าคุณเสิร์ชมาแล้วครับมาแล้ว
โอเคครับ
Okay today the
รายงานตัวครับผม
ครับผม
วันนี้ใช้ iPad มันอาจจะชื่อไม่ขึ้นโอเคครับ
ผม First of all I would like to thank for the team for the Zoom meeting we start already for 2 and 3 months already and we're going to end this month and I would like to thank the Kong the one from the Singapore and Alice he helping a lot when the set up for the Zoom and I would like to thank Rob VK Alison Sarah Suwara and Casey to helping to set up and to inviting the speaker from different places around the world. And thank you for Tata Loka to receive our invitation today. And before she going to talk, I would like to invite Alison to introduce the speaker. Okay.
Thank you, Ajahn Ritti. It is an honor to welcome Venerable Tataloka today to speak with us. Venerable Tataloka is an American-born member of the Buddhist monastic Sangha. Before the age of 20 in 1988, she undertook her formal Buddhist training in India, entering monastic life as an 8-precept practitioner, and 2 years later undertook the 10-precept nuns ordination as a novice. She wanted to connect to the ancient lineage of Bhikkhuni Sangha, and so she searched for and found a female mentor. She found her in South Korea, and she studied for 10 years with the most venerable Bhikkhuni elder Myung Seong Sunim. Venerable Tataloka became a Nakariya in 1995, and then in 1996 returned to the United States. And the following year, she received her full ordination as a Bhikkhuni from the Sri Lankan Bhikkhu Sangha. So in addition to focusing on meditation and Dhamma and Vinaya, Venerable Tataloka did deep research on Bhikkhuni Vinaya and Bhikkhuni Sangha. And because of that deep interest and deep knowledge that she gained, Venerable Tataloka proposed and then participated in the founding of the North American Bhikkhuni Association for Theravada Bhikkhunis and Samaneras. In 2005, in California, she founded the first residential community for bhikkhunis in the United States, Dharma Dharini. And she's been the senior monastic advisor for the Alliance for Bhikkhunis since its beginning. She was awarded as an outstanding woman in Buddhism in 2006. In 2007, she was invited by the Dalai Lama to be presenter to the first International Congress on Buddhist Women. She was also a participant in the first Bhikkhuni Patimokkha, which formally established the North American Theravadan Bhikkhuni Sangha. In 2008, also in California, she established an off-grid women's monastic hermitage, Aranya Bodhi, the Awakening Forest. And that actually became permanent in 2016, being a permanent Theravada Bhikkhuni Sangha. Venerable Tataloka is the first Western woman to be appointed as Theravada Bhikkhuni preceptor. And in that position, she has overseen the going forth and the full ordination of more than 50 women. And throughout her time, she has been doing extensive Buddhist environmental work. And I just want to say, Venerable Tataloka, that we're very grateful that you are with us today. I understand that you and your community were evacuated for a while from your hermitage because of the fires in California. I don't know if you can see, but it's very gray here because we also in Washington and in Oregon have many fires. And I was very grounded by something you posted this morning. You said, "Now I am getting used to the red moon at night, the red-orange sun shining through at noon, heavy smoke like heavy pearl mist filling the mountains. The Dhamma of just this, Yata Bhutam Yana Dasanam, seeing things as they are. Soon enough, they will change, as they are always changing, while for now, the path lies here." Welcome, Venerable Tataloka.
Allison, thank you very much for your introduction. Shall I go ahead?
Yes.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang Namasami. So, Krab Namaskan to all Tanjokun, Longpur, Prajan, all the venerable members of the monastic community who are gathered here together, and all Dhamma friends, and those who are interested in the Buddha's teaching. As Allison said in the introduction, I'm coming to you from Northern California, the Aranyabodhi Awakening Forest Hermitage on the Sonoma coast. And recently, due to wildfire on both sides, here on the coast, just a little bit to our north, neighboring us, and then also 2 ridges over, we had a large wildfire and needed to evacuate for a couple of weeks. And we've returned here to this forest hermitage only just a couple of days ago. And upon return, it seemed like the fires are calming down. And then very shortly afterwards, then the dark smoke started to roll in. In fact, the same day that we received word that nearby mega fire of the LNU, Northern Lightning Complex, the same day we got word that that fire was contained, then also heavy dark smoke started arriving, and the next morning then we had the dawn, the color of darkening twilight, and it just started getting darker and darker and more red. So I was remembering in the old Sanskrit poetry and some of the inscriptions from Indonesia from long ago about the bhikkhunis. Then they spoke about the robe, the monastic robe, the chivara, chivon, being like the color of darkening twilight. And then I felt better about it, because looking at the color of the sky and the forest, something very deep, like in my bones or in the low part of the brain is saying this is so ominous, this is like dangerous, something needs to be done about this. I could feel with mindfulness of the body, I could feel that arising in the body as something, deeply programmed into our humanity and having a human body. And then thinking about the idea of this color being like the robe color, then I started to feel a little bit better, a little bit better about it. Normally we associate the Buddhist monastic robe with autumn leaf color. The autumn leaf color also is they're like the colors of fire. We think they're so beautiful, and we love the autumn colors. More color, the better. Yes, to take photos and enjoy the smell of autumn leaves, and yet also we understand that the autumn leaves are a mark of death. And they're coming near to separation from the connection of their life with the tree. And then when that separation happens, they'll fall. And then we'll be walking through the crunchy, crisp autumn leaves. And I think it's so beautiful. And yet then that is the last of the life of that leaf. And that particular life cycle of that tree. So even as we contemplate this and we listen, we could perhaps even feel how our view is changing back and forth. We're thinking about something that we love, that's beautiful, that we want to take a photo of, that's pleasurable to us, that we have constructed in our minds as being a beautiful part of the cycles of nature. And then also when we think about the death aspect, if we connect with that release, that letting go, the falling of the leaf and its body, then becoming compost, becoming earth, returning to the soil, to the ground again, we might feel a sense of poignancy, even a sense of loss. But when we know it's the cycle of nature, we don't feel so bad about it because we have the bigger picture, we have the context. We understand, yes, this is just natural. These are just the cycles of nature. Yes. And then we may not feel heavy-hearted about it. Even when I think about the leaf letting go and falling in Buddhist monastic life, I've learned to think about that as like a kind of nibbana, a kind of like release, freedom, and that attachment, that sticking, that clinging to life that was there is then releasing. And then there's the sense of freedom with the leaf falling. Even when I was in India, then I went to India for the international Dipitaka chanting. And the Buddhist monastics from countries around the world, east and west, from all over the world, were gathered, sitting together in all our various autumn leaf color or fire color robes, underneath the Bodhi tree, which we connect with the Buddha's great awakening and enlightenment. And Bhikkhuni from Sri Lanka, who I went together with, now she's already passed away, but I traveled there together with her, and she prayed, "Oh, I wish one of those Bodhi leaves would just fall in my lap." Because you're not allowed to pick them there. It's against the rule to pick them. And so she had this beautiful prayer sitting there as we're chanting together, sitting under the Bodhi tree. And if one leaf will just fall into my lap, right? And then we feel this is a symbol of the freedom and the awakening of the Buddha, and to touch that with our own hands, with our own bodies, to feel this is coming to me and it's right here with me. It's just falling into my hands, falling into my lap. And then we think this is so beautiful. This is so wonderful, ardent and holy wish, yes? And yet for that leaf, this is the end of its life, in a way, in that incarnation, from its emerging as a tiny little bud and growing out in like a lotus curl, and then spreading open, and the Bodhi is like this beautiful pink red color in the beginning, and then maturing and shining, and then the time comes to fall. So we can see how the way that we're speaking about things, the way that we're framing them, in this case, we're talking about birth, aging, and then separation and death as the cycles of nature, that there's a way that we can consider this as just so natural and so beautiful and so normal. And then also we can see how much of the time we construct it very differently than this. How much of the time that's not the way we're seeing it, or even we think it's nature, but we have an issue with it. We have a problem with it. We don't agree. We say, that's not what I signed up for. Although having been born, probably aging and dying is what we signed up for. It's kind of hard to argue with, and yet we argue with it extremely. We so argue with it so intensely. Even sometimes we get so upset about it that we kill ourselves or one another over it, because we're just like so at odds with how the things are, so deeply rejecting or out of harmony, or against, not in tune, or not with a sense of the kind of balance or perspective, ease, clarity, or a sense of could even say rightness in a way, in terms of how the things are. So this brings me to the topics that I've been asked to speak about today. And I want to thank the Ajahn Riti and the Council of Thai Bhikkhus in the USA for arranging this Vasa or Pansa season, rainy season, English Dhamma intensive. And I so much appreciate that this is being offered for everyone now today and through this whole series, and for everyone who'll be able to see and benefit from this later. So I was invited to speak about how to use the Dhamma to solve the problem in daily life. I don't know, one problem or problems. I'm looking here, and it says problem. Oh, whoops, I'm sorry. Oh, that's our mountain. I don't mean to say that that's the problem. Not that. Anyway, I want to show you a problem, and what do I show you? I show you our mountain. Somehow it changed. Even you have one intention, but sometimes what happens is different than that. Here we go. How to solve the problem in daily life. And I really appreciate this title because I feel like it's so much in line with the Buddha's own thinking. Our monastic community here at Aranya Bodhi Awakening Forest Hermitage and also at Dhammadrini Monastery in the Sonoma Mountain area of Pengrove, during this Vasa, we have been specially focusing on the Buddha's dependent origination teachings, Paticca Samuppada. And the dependent origination teachings are considered to be one of the unique or essential core hallmarks of the Buddha's teaching. There are various teachings which focus on morality, moral virtue, ethics. There are various teachings and traditions also which focus on meditation or samadhi. And there are various traditions that consider themselves to be wisdom traditions and are teaching what that tradition believes to be wisdom in various ways. This particular teaching of dependent origination is considered to be unique to the Buddha's sasana, unique to the Buddha's teaching. We find it again and again in so many ways. And I'm happy to have this Vasa time now to be focusing, looking in to this teaching. Many of you may have heard about the 12-fold chain of dependent origination, which has 12 parts, sometimes portrayed in a wheel, and could be seen in a way as more complex. But the Buddha's summary of it is actually very, very simple. And sometimes even summarized by the Buddha so simply as looking at suffering, teaching suffering and the end of suffering, just suffering and the end of suffering. In the Four Noble Truths, it becomes even a little bit more complex than this because we start with suffering, dukkha, looking at suffering. Dukkha is to be understood. Suffering is to be understood. And then go to looking at what is the cause or what are the causes of suffering. This is where I want to come to this title, How to Use the Dhamma to Solve the Problem in Daily Life, because this is actually like a medical paradigm. Looking first at, where is the sickness? Where is the problem? What is the problem? Yes, and what is it coming from? What's causing it? And is there a treatment? Is there something that can be done about it or not? And if so, what? and that the assertion that there is the reduction and cessation of suffering, or you could say the solving of the problem or the problems, because this particular problem that the Buddha saw and identified and taught about, in a way is one, but in a way it becomes, like in the classical language, 84,000 kinds of suffering, right? Means ad infinitum. It can appear in so many forms, in so many ways, unlimited, practically in a fraction of a second. The way that we look at something can be causing that problem, or what kind of attitude is arising, what kind of intention, motivation, what mental states are arising, just so fast. It can be a problem, or the problem, or the problems, all the problems, so many problems. Yes. So quickly, and yet also so quickly, even just in a turn of thought, all of that can just come down and stop. And then the state of mind that is without a problem then comes to be our experience, our present experience. Yes, then we experience dukkha nirodha, cessation of suffering, whether for a very short time, in a very limited way, or in much larger ways where we can really see and really feel how much of a difference it is. And even in ways where that problem never arises again, because the root of that problem has been taken care of. The root, the underlying cause, or the underlying causes, with the underlying cause being attenuated, uprooted, or changed, then there's no basis for that to arise as a problem anymore. With the changing of the cause, then there's the changing of the effects. And what was a problem then is something else. It has become something else. We see the truth of non-self here. Not only the truth of dukkha, of suffering, or the truth of, we also see the truth of impermanence. And the truth of non-self together means at one time it was one thing. And then with a small shift, it has become something else. It had no permanent identity as such, and just some element, some aspect has changed, and then the whole dynamic changes, and what was a cause of suffering before now has become a cause of insight, now has become a cause of my realization, now has become a cause of my peace, my freedom, my happiness. Now has become a cause of my appreciation, gratitude, empowerment, wisdom, useful, practical, workable wisdom. Yes. So just with sometimes it doesn't even seem like such a large shift. When you're watching the tree and you see the autumn leaf is there, and then there's a little breeze and like this, and then the leaf is falling. It's so small, just a little breeze, and then that is shifted and changed, and the leaf is in motion and falling, and it's no longer attached in such a small spot, no longer attached anymore, and the whole dynamic has shifted and changed. So the Buddha's essential core insight was here. I'll tell you, we have a number of monks from Thailand, venerable monastics here together, and around 16, 17, 18, 19 years ago, I had a chance to go and visit Thailand, meditation monasteries around the country. and also to go on a walking pilgrimage in the northeast called Tudong or Charika in Pali. And in the northeastern area where we were walking, then the Thai people often say, "Mai ben rai," which we translate into English as "no problem," right? I heard it so many times. "Mai ben rai, mai ben arai" means it was nothing. It's not anything. What's the anything we're talking about? The anything we're talking about here is a problem. Mai ben arai means no cause for. There's no problem. It's not something that's the cause of a problem. And then when I was walking in the Lao area, then I heard "Bo ben yang," which means the same thing. Bo ben yang do. Not a problem. And for me at that time, many times, I'll tell you, according to my American enculturation, many times I thought there was a problem. I really did. It was too hot. It was too cold. The food was too spicy. With the sticky rice, I couldn't go to the toilet sometimes. I thought, it's a problem. And I couldn't speak the language very well, so I misunderstood things a lot. And then I thought it was a problem because I was misunderstanding. But then the monks who were with me and the lay people are telling me, it's no problem. No problem. And sincerely, like lightheartedly and easefully. And this was a great contemplation for me because, I'm telling you, I was sure there was a problem. But during that time, when we have time or when we take the time, when we make the time to really look at our experience and really take a good close look at what's going on and where the sticking points are or where they're not, then I could see for myself looking at it, it's like, where am I getting stuck? Why do I think so? Why am I so sure it's a problem? And if so, why is someone else relaxed and easy and not having the same problem at all, right? We think we're sharing the same reality, and yet the external reality, you could say, was the same for all of us. We were all in the same place at the same time, and yet someone else is relaxed and easeful. And I was getting stuck on something. So wonderful, so good to have the chance to be able to see that. And then also to have examples of people around who are obviously not stuck on the same thing. Because just looking at that, just watching that for me, then I could start to feel in my heart like this is what it might be like to not be stuck in the same kind of way on whatever this situation is, but to be able to be more easeful, more lighthearted, more natural. Even some of the monks talked about Dhamma. It's anyway in Thai it means more normal, but also in Buddhist philosophy, this Dhamma is considered to be so profound. It's like the essential nature of the Dhamma as realized by the masters, and that it's the natural norm of the Dhamma, the true nature and state of things, just as they are, as was mentioned earlier on. So in one way, in practical Thai language, this just means something that's normal or ordinary. In another way, it's there and it's like this is the supreme of Buddhist philosophy, to be able to come to that state, that understanding. And yet, does this mean that there's no work for us to do, that there's no benefit in our actions, in our efforts, in our endeavors. If I see someone who's just fallen down and then they're just about to be falling further over the edge of the cliff here, walking on the forest trail, am I going to just stand back and just say, this is cause and effect? They tripped, they're falling, they're going to fall further without help, and they'll be seriously injured and may die. Am I going to just think about that and realize that and watch that happen? Or if I'm there with them and I see them trip, we're walking together, and if they were to fall, I realize cause and effect, they're likely to get injured, maybe even mortally injured. What's the normal thing to do? The normal thing to do is, if you can, to catch them just right there before it becomes a worse problem, right? Just the normal action of kindness and care and friendliness and human companionship. Likewise for ourselves. Going back to that period of time, I started to be able to see in some situations it was predictable in a particular situation that going into that situation, my triggers, my issues are likely to arise for some reason. Yes. I can predict beforehand. Then also mindful of the body, mindful of feelings, mindful of mind, mindful of Dhamma. Then also you can see the things moment by moment, even like zoom into the causation and then see when that's about to arise, that particular perception. And then what's involved in that? It's coming from a view. What's the view? What's the story that's there? We often think that our perceptions, that's really deeply where we think my perception is me. That's self. That's I am this view. I am this perception. We talk about other people like they are like that. That's their view. They think that way. That's how they see things. And we just label people and we label ourselves with the views and perceptions. And yet when we start to look at it more closely, actually, we realize that we see the arising of a particular perception, the arising of a particular view in a certain context. And then also when we have the mindfulness and clear awareness, there's a kind of a spaciousness. And it's almost as if you were standing on a street corner and there were various taxis pulling in and buses and different kinds of vehicles pulling in. Say you've just arrived in the airport. Now asking you, do you want a ride? Do you need a ride? Do you have to get in the first vehicle that comes? Or do you have a choice? And for us, I think for most of us, we've experienced this. And obviously, if you want to take the bus or the train somewhere, and then a bus comes up, you want to look at the label on it and see, is this the bus that's going in the direction that I want to go? Not just get in the first one, which can be going anywhere. So when you have that perspective, when you have that spaciousness, then you can see one potential view or perception arising in its formation, but you don't necessarily have to get on board. If it's going the way that you want to go, where you intend to go, then yes, step on and go with it. But if you realize you're stepped back, even it's like within a fraction of a second or, just a few seconds, and then see, actually, I know that one. I've got on board with that one before, and that one is not where I want to go. I know that one leads straight to suffering and conflict for myself. That one, you know, if it had a real true sign on front, would be saying destination affliction, right? Going to dukkha. That would just have cause of dukkha aboard here. Very clearly labeled on it, right? And the driver just opens the door and says, going to dukkha, climb on board. And you have the option to step on or not. And you can also look around and see, actually, there are a lot of other vehicles. And even if the vehicle that you think is the right one for you, even if you don't see it, you have the ability with your built-in smartphone to call it up. This is something that's so beautiful and excellent in this practice, the things that we train ourselves in, the things that we develop. When I see something that I know leads to aversion and conflict, sometimes maybe even anger or hatred, or at least irritation and friction. And here it is arising. Climb on board. Here is the bus to irritation and affliction. And if you take it all the way, you'll get angry. And if you go to the end of the line, you will be exploding with hatred and anger, right? And no, right? I've done that before. Shall I take that one this time when you can see it? When you can see it like that. If you accidentally got on board also, whenever your mindfulness comes up, it's like there's a stop coming up right there where you have the possibility to exit that vehicle and choose another one, at least to step out and step down and, you know, take a look at it, because you've woken up that much. You've understood that much. Yes. When I talked about your smartphone, I don't have a smartphone myself, but almost everybody who I know does. So I'm still for a little while longer happily free of the smartphone. We used to talk about programming in speed dial. So that means you can get even a long international number. And then having done the work of programming it in, then you can just attach it to even just one number, right? Now just one name, even just one face. So name and form, it's an idea about something. Supposing I don't want to go with the irritation. And so then I have developed my program, my speed dial for kindness, or for compassion, or for appreciation, or just for equanimity, balance of mind. That kind of heart that's able to see and know and touch everything just as it is. It's able to pass through absolutely everything without requiring it to be different. That has that kind of depth, that kind of spaciousness, that kind of capacity and capability. If we've worked with these things, then just a moment of memory is like we're standing there at the airport and we just touch that image on our phone, and then the black Rolls-Royce limo comes up with the most excellent driver and says, "Madame, your vehicle is here." You know, or let me think about a more eco-friendly possibility. Can you tell me what is the new most eco-friendly and trending excellent vehicle? No, I don't know myself these days. Huh?
Your Tesla car.
My Tesla car. I've heard there are community members here, and they've told, yes, it's not a Rolls Royce. My Tesla has come. So I don't know about Tesla, so I'm not trying to advertise for them. It's just because somebody here said it. But obviously that's because it has some kind of like cultural meaning. And anyway, whatever your most excellent thing is, then just to think of it. The most excellent Dhamma for this very situation. What is the most excellent Dhamma for this very situation? And to just pause and reflect on that for a moment, and then see what arises, and think about touching it. Think about bringing it up into your visual field and form, or your auditory field in terms of words, or the sense of touch in the body. Whatever way this kind of knowing, this kind of jnana, this kind of knowledge or understanding or intuitive awareness, however that tends to arise for you, whether you're more visual or auditory or tactile, touch-based kind of person. Maybe it can come up for smell also. For myself, that doesn't happen so often. It's more with like an image will arise, or some kind of memory of some words will arise, or there will be something that seems like it's arising, the knowing is arising out of the body. In a way, like the body knows, the body has this level of knowing. So I find this so useful, extraordinarily useful to do even one time in this one lifetime, to stop and consider in this way, what would be the most excellent Dhamma for this very situation that I'm experiencing right now, live, and then to just open the door and call up that vehicle right there, and then get on board with that and give our all to it. I practice with this myself regularly, so much so that when you practice with this kind of thing a lot, it starts to become really fast. You know, it's just so quick that you can turn your thought in this way. If it's not there, that you can recognize I've gone into something else and just come right back, just so fast. The Buddha spoke about this in a way as being like on a short leash. Talking about the training of animals with mindfulness. It's an analogy for mindfulness, and like there's a particular time where the training is very delicate and sensitive, where you just need to stay very closely in touch and aware and not go so far. But even if you have gone far, as long as there's that sense of connectivity with your intention, having that intention, then you have the connection to come right back, or to bring it right back again. The more that we practice with this, the more quickly and the more clearly it can come up. It will come up. Then we have the chance to explore that and see, what's it like? How good is this? And what does this lead to gain the insight and the knowledge of conditional causation or dependent origination live through our experience, through our exploring the Dhamma and exploring the path in this way. So I'm going to take a pause here and see about questions, if there are questions. And I'd like to ask, because I'm getting old, and now I can see the screen barely, but neither my distance glasses nor my reading glasses are working at this distance. So I need to request one of the organizers or one of the assistants to, if you would, I'd like to invite you to choose a question that seems worthy to open up and explore together.
Yeah, we do have a lot of questions coming up. So if you don't mind, if I can actually read some of those questions for you. First of all, thank you very much, Tataloka Bhikkhuni, for your enlightening sharing. Your examples on the buses and vehicles very good. I just moved here to Singapore, and actually the most popular vehicle over here is called BMW. It stands for bus, not the BMW that we all look out for. The BMW stands for, the favorite vehicle is actually bus, MRT, which is a train, and walking. So a lot of people actually drive their BMW. And I didn't know that when I first moved here, when everyone started telling me, hey, the most popular vehicle is BMW, because people would take bus, they would take the train and walking. So just what you're saying. Okay, that's not the question.
I so much appreciate you mentioned the bus and the public transport and also walking. And if we come back to that analogy, according to the Buddhist teaching, if none of those vehicles are worthy vehicles, then walk. Then you walk. Just walk on your way. Yeah, go freely, right? In the Rhinoceros Sutta, then the Buddha is mentioning like this: if the worthy vehicle or worthy companions are there, then go with them. And if you don't see them, then go with the worthy yourself and just walk. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. First question that I have here is a pretty long question, so I'll read it out slowly. How do we frame the problem of human activity and our impact on the climate within the framework of dependent origination? If we are working on ourselves, how do we at the same time step outward and press for the change that the biosphere needs to stay viable? Kindness and care and loving kindness even in the face of human division.
No, such a good question. So important for us right now. Thank you very much to the person who has asked. The Buddha taught the practices of the Brahma Viharas, metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, mudita, appreciative joy, and upekkha, which we can say equanimity or equipoise or balance. And these are taught in other practices like mindfulness of the body, or mindfulness of the great elements, great elemental properties. Also, some practices called asubha, the teaching on what is unpleasant. For all of these, the Buddha's teaching is to turn inwards and to look inwards, but also to look outside. So not only to be exclusively turned inwards. When we talk about the loving kindness, then there's the way that we say, what is it? Above, below, around, and everywhere, to all as to myself, or compassion, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, and above, below, around, and everywhere, to all as to myself. For our insight as well, when we're working with vipassana practice, it's not only meant to see the impermanence of just inside this body, but we're taught to look and see the impermanence inside all of the other forms, all of the other bodies that we're looking at. Yes? So for each of the vipassana contemplations, and when we look at causation, when we do the practice, the path practice of looking into dependent origination and seeing causation, seeing how problems are being caused, and also how problems can be not caused, or how we can act more wisely. This is essential to the path. It's essential to the Four Noble Truths, and it's not only just confined to just this body, because our lives are relational. When we look at the Noble Eightfold Path, and we can see this when we're talking about views, but even then we're looking at our own views. It's so important to look at our own views, but we need to be able to see views in others also, to recognize when is that a view that's being expressed, and what kind of view is it that's being expressed, and that's a basis then for action, right? So you could say, some people have the view that our The meaning of life is to consume, excrete, and die. So there's a view, there's an idea, and that's the meaning of life. So why should we think about climate anyway? We're just here. I mean, we're just consuming beings, and we're just here. Everything is eating everything else, and then we die, and that's it, right? And that's the only meaning that there is. That there's the idea that that's like the right Dhamma of all kinds of living beings. We have to ask: is that a right view? Is that true? Is it partly true and partly not true? No, develop our discernment. If we hear someone saying something like this, then the views and the motivations then, as now, get expressed in speech. So for ourselves, for right speech, we're practicing ourselves, really working on, like, what are our views, what are our motivations, and then to speak with kindness and truthfully, and then also purposefully with good and proper motivation, all of these qualities there. But it's not only, we need to do this ourselves, not just be focused on what the other people are saying and judging that, but we need to be able to apply this mirror both ways, really, to be able to see clearly, and even, I'd say, equally, to be able to see clearly what's going on for ourselves, and then also to be able to really to see clearly what's going on for the others. Otherwise, people say things and we just believe them, or we say that people say things or write things or they're published and we just don't believe them. And we get into extreme kinds of views and behaviors that are not the same as the discernment. Working with discernment. Why am I moving my hands like this? Long ago, with various Buddhist schools and traditions arising, the traditions that have become the Theravada, preserving the early Buddhist teachings, are originally called Vibhajavada. Vibhaja actually means to discern, to be able to separate the things out and see them in their parts, and see and understand them clearly. So often, for what people are saying, it's mixed. There may be some part that's true and some part that's confused, and some part, even sometimes people unintentionally pass down wisdom. Not because they're wise, they've just passed down something wise, but they're ignorant themselves. And discernment will tell you, this person is passing down something that's so awesome and wise and true, and also I understand they themselves are still ignorant. And you can separate the things out, right? Not just like thinking they're ignorant, get out of here, and also not thinking wrongly they're saying something wise, that means they must be super, like they don't have any more ignorance themselves. These are like, kind of extremes. They're not touching on the subtle actuality of the situation, which contains the blending of the various factors that are coming together. But wise discernment, working with insight, then we can see the parts, we can see the strands clearly, and each one, like which part is this, which part is that, and then we're not so confused. And when we're not so confused and we're able to see more clearly, it's relaxing and it's comfortable and easeful. So that's nice, that's good for us and the people who are around us, but it's more than that, because that insight connects to wisdom. It connects to a kind of practical clarity. Because we're not confused about something, we're not going to act in a stupid way, in an unwise way, based upon that confusion. Our tendency to do that becomes less and becomes less, because we're able to discern the things, we're able to see the parts clearly. It leads also to not rejecting people and situations out of hand. What I mean by that is there's a tendency when we're not able to discern the things and we don't understand how the different parts come together and are often mixed in ourselves or in a situation or in other people, then we have false views about that. We think it's all one way or we think it's all the other way. And when we have a kind of false, inflated, positive view about something, we think it's all great. We believe that without really seeing what's going on, then we see one negative aspect of it and our faith is dashed. And we get angry, we feel betrayed, and we want to give up and go away and like throw away all of that. And we say, it had seemed so good. How can it be like that? And feel betrayed, you know? But if we have this view of discernment, we can see that good part is good. We don't have to throw it away. The good part is good. Keep the good part. Go with the good part. Develop the good part. And for what you're seeing, the part that's not good, also see it clearly. This is not to be done. This part, I see this part is negative. This part is not well. So I learn from that also. I learn from this part, this is to be done. And I learned from that part, this is not to be done. So this is the basic insight knowledge or sampajanya related to kusala and akusala. What we say wholesome or unwholesome, beneficial or unbeneficial, to be able to discern and see these things clearly. Then we can have a relationship with someone or a situation that has both positive and negative aspects, and we can benefit from that. We can grow from that. It doesn't have to be all perfect, right? And we can have a good relationship with ourselves, with all the things that we're doing well, the way that we're growing, what the beautiful qualities that we do have, as well as the things that are our faults, our bad history, the mistakes that we've made, the habits that we still have that are really stupid and foolish. Even we're trying to work with them, but we're just not all there yet. We're still doing that, but we can be clear. We can be okay in ourselves with that and just understand this is my habit that goes in a way that is not wise, and I'm working with it. I'm doing my best, and I'm not all there with it. So when I say towards ourselves and towards others, then also we turn that clear, beautiful attitude towards others and towards situations. And this can be not only a much more comfortable, easeful, happy way of existing with ourselves and others that's truth-based, but it grows and it develops and it can be progressive in so many ways. So all of us have our livelihood. We're all living in the world, engaged in the world in one way or another. And we understand that for the Noble Eightfold Path, right livelihood, Samma Ajiwo, is an essential part of the Noble Eightfold Path. It's rooted in our right view, and it's facilitated by our mindfulness, and it's manifest through our right effort. And you're talking about something here. Livelihood is a place of interface with the world, a major place of interface with the world. So how to bring then consciously and actively bring what we're learning, what we're practicing with internally, then also to bring that to our external relationships with our fellow humans, our other living beings, our environment. Our aim as Buddhists is to live as wisely as we can, with as much clarity and with all of our best intentions active. And, you know, one of the ajahns who I saw on here earlier is a very simple Dhamma saying that I'm remembering right now, and that is, do your best and let it go. Then let it go and do your best. And then do your best and let it go. So it's not to be like engaging with the things is not to be grabbing onto the wheel of samsara and then like get sucked into everything and then crash down on the wheel necessarily. It's not necessarily like that. Our turning to the Dhamma wheel and engaging with the Dhamma wheel in all the factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, including our livelihood, our active engagement with the world. Yeah, this is a proper part of the path. So we're working with this internally, we're working with it externally in so many ways in these practices. So I'd say for each of them, actively try to develop it like that. Develop the internal part on an ongoing basis as much as you can, and work on the external part, the insight as you look outwards, the purification of your intention and your motivation as you're turning your view and turning your words and turning your actions outwards, the wisdom of causation, the insight into causation and wisdom, which leads to our decreasing the unwise actions and increasing the wise actions. This is essentially important in the path, and really there's no limit to how much you can engage this. Does it speak to your question?
Yeah, thank you. Question from Alison. Thanks, Alison, for the beautiful questions. And
thank you.
Can I furthermore share more questions with you?
Yes,
there are more questions that
sure.
we need to. I think earlier you actually talked about dependent origination. So this question is about you sharing what are the strategies that will help us to maintain mindfulness of the flow of dependent origination moment to moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, looking out for it, number one. And mindfulness sati plus sampajanya. Sampajanya enables us to do that. In this case, we could even say sati reminds us to do that. In this case, sati, an essentially important part is the recollection, is to remember to do that, to look out for it. And then sampajanya, then when you're looking at the things internal and external, whatever you're looking at, you look at it in terms of discernment, in terms of causation, understanding causation. Yeah, being able to see what's the relationship between, it's not just one cause, but the causes or conditions, hetu pachaya. So the causal conditions or conditional causation, basic understanding is that all of the things are arising out of conditions. Yeah, and the basis for being able to engage with this path is understanding that we can actually intentionally affect those conditions. How we're seeing things, how we're thinking about them, how we're speaking, how we're behaving, all of that is effective. These are all conditions that then have results. When we understand this part clearly, when we see even just this part clearly, this is really right view. The one who sees this part clearly, actually they become the stream enterer due to the strength of their clarity and their right view. This is called like plunging into the stream from which there's no return. It's not only getting your feet wet with the Dhamma and with insight wisdom, but like you talked about the flow of conditional causation. This is the flow of the Dhamma, right? This is the stream. This is the stream of the Dhamma sota. So the person who then enters into, plunges into that, then they're called the stream enterer. And when they start to gain some skill with it, they really start to be able to see that even more clearly, not just basically in principle, but even more clearly. And they start to gain some skill, then they're called a stream winner. Yes, and the things change for them. Change a lot for them. The kind of confusion that people can fall into, the kind of despair that people can fall into, the torturesome nature of aversion and of strong desires that really torture people, then those things stop having ground to generate in that kind of way, in the same kind of way. They may be there in a much, much lesser way, but not able to go so deeply, so painfully, where the people, like, it makes them crazy over these things. So then not only do they get a stream, they get the banks of the stream to contain, hold and contain that Dhamma. You're drinking out of your cup. If your cup were cracked, then the liquid that you put in it would be seeping away. If we have this kind of cracks of the asavas like this, then even we pour in Dhamma, then we feel like we have Dhamma for a moment, but then it's like it's seeping away and we lost it again. But if we plunge into the stream like this and develop this kind of clarity of the Dhamma, conditional causation, it's like sealing those cracks. Then your cup, your Dhamma stream has a bank to hold it. This is Dhammadhara. Even our community here is named Dhammadharini. It's meaning to be able to hold the Dhamma in this kind of way. Otherwise, it's all and seeping away. And you can feel that. It's the great grief. Really, it's a great grief. We love the Dhamma, but if we don't have that level of vision and view and containment, then we have it for a moment and then it's so sad. It's like seeping away and then it's just my habits are flowing back in again. And I feel like I lost that. And it seems so sad, so tragic. Then we try to fill ourselves with the Dhamma again and again, and that's good. But this part about seeing the nature of the Dhamma and conditional causation to develop this view, which is a functional view, an active view, it's how we can really truly engage the Noble Eightfold Path. It's how the Four Noble Truths work. When you get that, then you don't feel that pain and grief and suffering of the loss of the Dhamma and the loss of your insight anymore. You get the happiness and strength and clarity of being a holder of the Dhamma, your own body and mind, your own body, feelings and mind. Then this is Dhamma, right? Knowing that, then you're happy. Even there are many kinds of suffering and things, but you know basically what's going on with that and basically how you can work beautifully and excellently and well with that. So you know your life efforts are not in vain. They're meaningful and they're being well applied. Then this is a basis for even so much suffering and difficulty and ignorance is there, but this is a basis for happiness, for clarity, for gladness. It's a basis for, we could also say, for our integrity. And we feel we have a deep, clear, strong sense of integrity in our humanity as a human being, as a living being, as a being with awareness that's showing up intentionally in this life for our welfare, benefit, and happiness of self and others.
Thank you for the insightful answer. And this is another insightful question. So let me read out the question. Can you integrate the theme of solving the daily life problem in terms of suffering grief over the end of a relationship, but simultaneously experiencing an attachment to the grief itself?
Oh, right. Somebody's insight there. I'm not sure whether the attachment is necessarily to the grief itself, because mostly people actually don't want to suffer. And yet it may be, this is where the discernment comes in. It might look like, here's grief and I can tell I'm attached, and so I must be attached to the grief. But if we look into that and open it up, probably there's more to it than that. What's going on inside it might not be attachment to grief. It may be just we have the longing for something to be so, and the attachment is related to that longing for something to be a particular way. We're craving that, we're thirsting for that, we desire that, we long for it, we wish for it. There the attachment finds ground. This is where we're talking about tanha, say thirst, desire, craving, yes? And then the upadana, then the clinging then. In this case, our mind then is that, not our mind, but the attachment, the upadana in the mind is then going to that vision of what we think we crave for, we desire, we long, whether it's a vision or it's a feeling or whatever it is. And then the attachment is to that. And then it's not like that, right? And that then there's the pain of it not being like that. Not getting what one wishes is dukkha, right? Getting the things that we don't want is dukkha. So I think about these kinds of tanha that were part of the Buddha's very first teaching, and also an essential part of the Buddha's great awakening realization, and what the Buddha felt immediately like one of the most important things to communicate to his companions in the noble search in the holy life. And it was about this part, about the tanha. So the bhava tanha and vibhava tanha, I think, is what we're talking about here. Bhava tanha, then that thing that you think you want, you like, that you want to get, the craving for that, the desire for that, the thirst, the hunger for that. And then the vibhava tanha. Also, you can think about it as being like, did you see the mask dance, like Tibetan mask dance, and the dancer has a mask on one side and then also has a mask on the other side. So there's the mask on both sides of the head, right? But it's one head. Even this head right here, it's just one head, is one thing, part of one body, and yet it's got its different sides to it. They come together. There's no way. Also the hand, also here, just one hand, but this side and this side are distinct, but they come together. So you want to get rid of something, underneath your wanting to get rid of it, always there's the desire for something else. Or you desire something, you want to keep it. Underneath that is the idea of the loss of that, or the presence of what you don't wish, right? So one is more obvious than the other is hiding, but it's right there, right? So how they come together in this way, yes? So then I think when we're talking about sensing, there's attachment present and also there's grief. So there's the bhava tanha and the vibhava tanha, and there might be kama tanha there also. If they had sensual enjoyment or they wish for sensual enjoyment in that relationship, to have sensual pleasure, if there's sensual craving as part of that, then this may be there as well. Maybe they enjoyed the physical relationship with that person somehow, whether they liked how they looked, or they liked the sound of their voice, or they liked their skin, or whatever it may be, yes, then these are all like bases of the sensual enjoyment, sensual craving, and sensual attachment. And often that's built in there also. It's an element in there. So you think about the relationship and, oh, then I love to hold their hand in years past like this, right? And you remember that, and that sense of the pleasure of that. And you can see, if you look carefully yourself, even in your imagination, you can see how the attachment is going to these different circumstances. But the upadana, we say attachment, but really the way the Buddha was speaking about it is more like consuming. The example given is of the flame and it's fuel. So as long as there's fuel, then it's like the flame clings to, we say attachment, but it's like the flame clings to, and then it consumes that fuel. Yeah. And so this is actually the analogy that the Buddha was teaching for these things, for how our mind or how our heart, then that clinging and that desire with the hunger and thirst to consume whatever may not be the real object, but the idea of the object. And here's where you can start to go deep. Is it really that object, or is it the idea of the object that craving, that hunger, that thirst, that clinging is feeding on? Where is it happening? This path is so awesome in these regards. It's so wonderful and excellent. You can look into it. We have myriad circumstances in which we can look into, see and know, and then see what's going on with this. And then you're not just suffering these various circumstances over and over again in doubt and confusion. This becomes your path of insight and awakening through these very same circumstances, because that's how you choose to approach them and to engage with them and to work with them. Then the result is different because of how you're seeing it, what your intention is, how you're engaging it. The result that comes out of it is profoundly different. This is the power of dependent origination and the active insight, proactive insight into dependent origination.
Thank you. So if you don't mind, if I can just close out with one last question, because I think this question relates to the topic that we are talking about.
Yes, please.
So the question is, as we know life is full of suffering, how can we maintain the state of mind in the middle path to solve our daily life problem?
Well, for the person who's asked this, who said that the life is full of suffering, certainly there is so much suffering in life. When we look at the Four Noble Truths and look at them, say like the immanence of the Four Noble Truths, presence of the Four Noble Truths, there are different ways of looking at and approaching the same thing, right? Means the circumstances of the sufferings of life, or the circumstances of life. So if we look at the dukkha, the suffering part, then actually in the Buddha's first teaching, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the Buddha said that suffering or dukkha is to be understood. So it's like a prescription there for us. Then when we're looking at suffering, then to look in terms of causation. This is the working with dependent origination, as we've been talking about, and seeing like, where is this coming from? What is it made of? Why is this happening? How is it happening? Not just at a superficial level. I hear people say, why? Oh, why is it happening like this? Why me? Why now? Why them? Why this? Why? But it's like a level of saying why that often comes without going anywhere in terms of looking into what's actually happening. We're having a pity party. Anyway, if we intentionally have a pity party, then we can enjoy having a pity party like me right now, right? So I can just enjoy having a temporary pity party like this and be intentional about it. But also it can be fruitful to look more clearly into what's going on. And when we have the intention to do so, and then we try to do so over time, if we're also working with developing mindfulness and clear comprehension, and if we also have some training or some idea about insight practices and like how to apply with our mindfulness, how to look into things in a way that's discerning, and just some basic training. It doesn't have to be a lot. but then we apply that in the circumstance. If we're not used to doing it, generally, unless it's a really dramatic circumstance like a car crash or something like that, generally at first, if our minds are used to, our view is used to being so shallow, it will be like shallow and impenetrable. However, when we bring our mindfulness and clear comprehension or clear awareness to touch upon the things with the interest to discern, to see, to know, to truly actually know what's going on, there are different things that happen. If you practice mindfulness of the body, you may notice with that intention how your heart is starting to open when you have that intention, and how your body is shifting and starting to relax. You may notice even how your vision changes, even visually, and stops being so flat in a way and starts to become more, I don't know, it's almost like there's another dimension of it that opens up where you can see the things moving in relationship to each other, relationality, and even for hearing, for our different senses, this can arise, and then we feel it. What seemed impenetrable starts to become softer, and it starts to become more amorphous, and then we start to feel there's some kind of little bit of depth and opening and relaxing, and then we start to be able to see into and see through the things here and there in a different kind of way. Our sense of it being all bound up and blocked and obstructed changes into a sense of opening and releasing and relaxing and possibility, and a shift in our vision, our sight starts to be able to go into and go through the things and see the relationship in a very intuitive way, altogether differently, in a way that's so, it's kind of ironic, because in a way it seems like you're opening up so much spaciousness that there's not this sense of being like so attached to the things. There's the sense of opening it up, but also there's a sense of being so much more like intimately connected with everything, and not being like shut out and blocked off and like I am separate from all that, which is so painful. So there's the feeling of spaciousness and not being so stuck on the things, together with the sense of being in touch or in tune and flowing with, being a part of, not separate from all the things. And we realize for all the elements in the world and the other people in this body, it's all the flow of the great elements, right? And for all the feelings and for all the thoughts and all of these things, we start to see likewise. And for Dhamma, seeing Dhamma internally and externally, start to see the Dhamma and everything. Then rather than seeing the problem in daily life, then you may see rather the opportunity in daily life, with the Dhamma in daily life, the path, the lived path, the engaged path in daily life can be what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what your lived experience is. And it's good.
Thank you. So thank you for your great insights. So can I hand it back to Ajahn Riti and Long Paul for the closing?
And I'd like to just take a moment here, being in this smoky area with so many wildfires around and so many other kinds of suffering and ignorance, doubt, confusion, together with so many joys and beautiful and good and glad things just to think about sharing the blessings, sharing the merit of the goodness of this time together for our own welfare, well-being, happiness, growth in the path, for our insight, for the fruition of our insight, and for our experiencing for ourselves the truths that the Buddha, the noble truths that the Buddha taught, and the wish that this be an active blessing, radiating outwards from us to the entire world. May this be of blessing, may this be of benefit. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you. Ajahn Tanat, you want to say something? Turn the microphone.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much for your excellent Dhamma talk today. Very inspiring and make the people feel comfortable with suffering, dukkha. So you said that entire word, ไม่เป็นไร. If you see that ไม่เป็นไร is a normal, that's a supreme teaching in Buddhism. Because, you know, the people from the Northeast, they are very, you know, common people who live with the forest, with, you know, remote area. And they have to practice the true Dhamma. Why the Buddha, he left the palace to seek the Dhamma in the forest. So the same thing. If you study about the lineage of the Tudong monk or the Buddhist traveling monk who stay in the cave in the deep forest, that is the answer of why the people find the Dhamma in the deep forest. So, but when you live in the city, the competitive society, you have to use more Dhamma, but you have to practice mindfulness and then be strong with your mind, and then you can be with any situation around you, especially in the pandemics of the coronavirus or COVID-19 right now, make the people around the world so panics and fear and not have, they don't have certain life, they fear in the future. So how to live without fear and worry, have to stay with the breathing mindfulness. Okay, thank you very much for your Dhamma talk today and inspire all the people or practice Dhamma together. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay. Casey, you want to say anything? Casey?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much. This was wonderful to get a new perspective on dependent origination and how to look at it in our daily life. I really appreciate your wise words, especially the image of having a bank to keep the water from seeping out, and the ongoing challenge we have of keeping that bank there each day. You know, knowing that we're that there's no I, me, or mine here. It's just an ongoing moment by moment process. Keeping that front and center. So thank you so much for your wise words. Really helpful.
Okay. Thank you, Casey. Yeah, thank you for very much for everyone to come and join today. We have a lot of them people, and thank you for the good Dhamma talk today. And we're going to close right now. Maybe Long Paul, he already left, and we're going to pay respect to the Triple Gem together. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavanta Abhivademi สวะหะโตภะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมานัมมัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามิ Okay.
Okay, good night. And
Let
take,
everyone
take care your forest temple, okay? Be careful of the wildfire.
Yeah, take care for everyone.
Yes. Okay.
อาจารย์กราบนมัสการอาจารย์ Goodbye, Dhamma friends. May we practice well.